A Road Less Traveled podcast. My name is Hilary Haron and I am your host. Today we have Dr. Carole Goldsmith with us. She is the Chancellor for State Center Community College District. Welcome, Carole.
Well, thank you for having me, Hilary.
Thank you for being here. I'm very, very grateful.
Of course. I can't imagine anything I'd rather do more than spend some time with you.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
In your role in academia, how did you get into it?
Yeah, little kids don't wake up and say, I want to be a chancellor, whether a wee one. It's interesting. In fact, when I was young, I wasn't the best student. I liked school. I enjoyed school. I enjoyed learning, but I didn't test well, and I didn't perform well on standardized tests or those sort of things. So in my early elementary years were not all that spectacular. And then later in my academic journey, they found out that I had dyslexia. So that kind of explained some of my poor test performance. And luckily, I had some really good faculty and some great teachers who were able to help me and give me the tools that I needed to learn and to be able to perform to show that I had understand and had learned things. So that journey in and of itself, I didn't realize how much it really shaped me because I wanted to be a lawyer, which I still think is a noble profession, because I wanted to be able to help people and I wanted to be able to change, the world to make it a better place. And as I went to Fresno State, I was a history major in preparation to go to law school. I really realized actually the power of change really occurs in the classroom. And so I changed my major and I became a teacher. So I taught for a number of years here locally in the Central Valley, small rural schools first. And then I absolutely loved teaching. I was a history teacher, but I also brought in why, the famous question students always ask since the beginning of time, why do I need to know this and is this on the test? And I always found if there was a way I could connect it to whatever they were learning to something that they might want to do in terms of a vocation or career later, that would kind of be the hook. And I found out there was. So then my second love and passion came, and that was for career technical education. So I went back to school and got my administrative credential, left public schools and worked for a private post-secondary career college and helped them expand their offerings. In fact, it's San Joaquin Valley College. Okay. It's still a great college here up and down the valley and actually throughout the state. And then as I got more involved with private post-secondary, I realized I really wanted to get back into public education because I really felt that was more of a value for many of our students who can't afford to go to public or private school. So then I came back and worked for Fresno Unified at their adult school. And you may know the Cesar Chavez Adult School, which is downtown. Yep. That's a beautiful facility. I helped open that facility. We were in multiple locations throughout the city before they built that wonderful facility, which actually was I think it was an old car dealership before they rehabbed it. So that was nice. And then as I spent time there, I was a vice principal of adult education and career technical education. I started to have a lot more interactions with people at the community college. Mm-hmm. And that's when I thought, okay, that's where I want to go. So when you talk about a road less traveled, I never in my wildest dreams thought I would have been a chancellor or a president of a college. In fact, in my early years, I wasn't sure if I was even going to go to college. So it was a twisting path. It was nice. After Fresno Adult School, I went to West Hills College. Mm-hmm. And West Hills College is in Coalinga, California, and Lemoore. And there we grew a lot of career technical programs in agriculture and healthcare. Really enjoyed working with the faculty there, the administrators, and many of the businesses and farmers. So I worked there as a strategic planner for a while, and then went through the ranks and became vice chancellor, and then became president at West Hills College, Coalinga. So I moved from Fresno, lived in Coalinga, was president there for about 4 years, and then had an opportunity to come home. And that's when people called me and said, have you heard about the Fresno City College opening? I said, yeah, but I don't know. I really like Coalinga. And so people talked me into applying, and I got the job. And that was an incredible experience. I mean, Fresno City College, California's first Community College.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I know you've been on the
Gorgeous.
campus.
Yep. My alma mater. One
Yes,
of them.
yes. So I got to spend some time there. I was there for 6 years, and then worked towards becoming chancellor. So I don't think I woke up thinking I wanted to be chancellor. It was just the next indicated staff where, is it higher power? Is it God? Yes, I think to both. And you kind of go where you think you're being drawn to.
Something that kind of feels right.
Yeah, it does.
And so you've been through pretty much every little nook and cranny of academia, if you will.
Yeah.
Recently, I have a cousin who is getting her PhD at LSU, and she's really passionate about academia in general. She wants to teach, and she's not sure she wants to go the next step. But the conversations that we have are often related to the mass exodus from academia.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that in your role, specifically as it relates to women?
Yeah. It's interesting. In California, we haven't seen a mass exodus, although I'm reading about it in different parts of the country. And I think there is some folks who are leaving for various reasons. Some people, I think there's a gray wave coming as we see more people who are getting ready to retire. I still think more people see education as a viable career, and they want to get involved. You see some people from states that might be more restrictive wanting to come to California. You see some of faculty who don't really like how California's going, so they're going to other states. That kind of natural transition of where you want to live, I think, occurs. I'm excited to see our students coming back after the pandemic. So for me, that's the best indicator that community colleges are doing well, and especially here in the Valley.
That they're healthy and they're attracting students. So even throughout history, initially, it was we're talking a little bit about male dominated.
Yeah.
So not just students were mostly male, which now I think the statistics have changed to be slightly more equal. But in your industry, do you feel that academia is male dominated? And do you feel that it's male dominated from either a volume standpoint or a decision maker standpoint? I mean, obviously you're in a decision maker position, so you're kind of changing that color, and that's amazing. Do you feel like the entire industry, if you will, is coming along as progressively?
That's a really good question. When you look at the students, it really has shifted, and we see more females going to community college than males. And right now we're probably about 60-40 split, and that really accelerated during the pandemic, but before it was about like 55-45. So we see a lot of our young males, and in fact there's been a lot of studies about where are these young men going. Are they going into the workforce? Are they going to the military service? And really there still seems to be a question mark, because when you talk to employers, they're not seeing a mass pool of young men ready to come. So some people had talked about this delayed adolescence, and is that playing a factor? We see a lot more of our men coming back to college or coming back to school a little later. So we're trying actively to bring those young men back. But in terms of the workforce, you're absolutely right. When Fresno City College first opened its doors in 1910, it was mostly white males, both in leaderships, in teaching, and as students. Slowly, over time, that has changed. It's still, the CEO position is still more dominantly in the C-suite is usually a male, but we're seeing over this last 10 years, I think, a greater shift of women taking over the role. I think in California, we're probably one of the states that have more diverse representation as college presidents or college chancellors, both in terms of gender, but also in terms of ethnicity. But you don't see that across the nation. So national statistics would probably show we're making slower gains than they are in California. But I've seen change just in my experience. When I first was at West Hills, I was the only female executive for quite some time. So it was nice to see that start to change.
Can you give us a little bit of an idea of times when you felt like, I want to give up. I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight this battle. they're never gonna accept me.
Yeah.
Some adversity that maybe you've encountered and how you either overcame it or have kind of learned to coexist with it. That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
it's interesting you should ask that. It seems like all too often there's challenges in one's career or even in one's day that makes you go, why am I doing this? Is this making any difference? And there are little challenges and big challenges, and I'll tell you the secret and then I'll give you an example. One of the things that I try to focus on is not necessarily the problem or the challenge or the challenging individuals who may be involved, but I also try to look at who we're trying to serve, and that's our students and our community, and try to always stay focused on the student, always stay focused that our community needs us, and really trying to overcome challenges. I'll give you an example. One had to deal with the pride flag. When I first got into education, there was no protections for LGBT folks. So just even coming out, you could lose your job. So that's a bit intimidating.
It's kind of unreal.
It's kind of unreal. So things have changed, but even here in progressive times over the last 5 years, I remember we wanted to pass a resolution encouraging people to learn about Pride Month and what it means in terms of the history for all Americans, and encourage the colleges to raise the pride flag. And it hadn't been done ever before, and that was in 2000, I think 18 or 19, hadn't been done. And so I took the resolution to heart, and we raised the flag. And it was a very controversial time, you may recall, because the city was facing some, should they raise the flag, should they not raise the flag? And
I mean, they still have.
they still have
even through
controversy.
this year.
They even have controversy still. And, I was a little nervous about it because I did get some hate mail and hate email about why are you doing this? And Mayor Dyer reached out to me, and I've known him for many, many years. And he's like, can I come to your flag raising ceremony? Because I don't want to say anything. I'll be in the back. I'm like, Mayor, it's a community college.
Yes,
Everybody's
please.
welcome. Of course you can come. So I saw him in the back, and not only my story, but other people's story about why this matters and why it's so important to be able to create a place of belonging and a place of really inclusion and showing that everybody's welcome. It made a big deal to our students, but I also think it changed our mayor's heart a little bit. In fact, he said so. And that story got picked up by national press. And
wow.
we got a lot of praise and a lot of hate because, anytime you try to do something different, something audacious, something new, there's always push and pull. So you have to look past the moment and think about how's this going to impact those students who maybe didn't feel included. And for me, that was probably one of the biggest challenges that we're still facing, but we're still going to try to move forward with love and make sure everybody knows they're welcome.
Creating a safe space of inclusion.
Absolutely.
That can be really challenging, just from my own experience in a heavily male-dominated industry. How are you taking steps moving forward? I mean, you're obviously very inclusive and progressive, and the hate mail has to be really hard to deal with, especially because you're in such a public role. How do you kind of keep yourself safe? Not even just physically safe, but emotionally safe.
Yeah, and again, timely. Right now, believe it or not, I have a couple of restraining orders on people because they've made physical threats to me and my family.
That is unreasonable.
It's unconscionable if you think about it. And I have to wonder, if I were a male chancellor, would I be receiving this type of just terrible hate? So you have to take both sometimes legal stance to protect yourself, to protect the institution. As chancellor, that's part of my job, is to make sure that our institutions are safe for our students and staff. And also as a person, I want to make sure I protect myself and my family. So leaning into a bullying type situation, I think you can't walk away from it. You can't hide from it. You just have to stand up and lean on your faith. I go to Big Red Church down in the tower, and I talk to my pastor about things. And so, I have the power of prayer for that congregation with me. That helps me a great deal. And then also just the emotional, as you were talking about, the emotional toll it takes. Taking time to talk to your pastor, taking time to talk to a therapist, taking time to walk your dog.
Yeah.
Just to get out in nature and remind yourself that, this too shall pass. And I think that's the part, as people who feel threatened, it's easy to get caught in that fear. And you really have to be brave in terms of little things like going out and walking your dog or taking time to ride your bike, and seeking, like I said, guidance from your spiritual family, I think is important.
I've kind of curated my own little group of advisors, right? You've got your doctors, you've got your therapists, you've got your astrologists, and you've got your religious guides. And I've also found that that's very, very helpful. How's your staff feeling? Does that permeate down all the way through from the staff to the students, or have you kind of been singled out, just essentially because you're not what they expect?
No, I think it's a yes and. When there's these, I'll call them waves, with the latest incident that we had, we had to do a timely warning. We had to notify the college that this incident took place, that these threats were made, because it came from a student. So we had to let the student told us what had happened, and so we had to do an investigation. The investigation is still ongoing. It's a criminal matter. It's still ongoing. So we had to notify people and do a thorough investigation, because the alleged perpetrator of these threats, also my job is to protect their due process, to make sure they get not only a fair shake in the employment field, but also to make sure everything takes place elsewhere as well. So there's that fine line of balancing the protection of the students and staff, and also making sure that individual has due process. So we had to put him on paid administrative leave per California Ed Code and regulations. And so we'll let the investigation continue, and then we'll play things out accordingly, and we'll take the analysis at that time. So when those type of events happen and students get a timely warning, or a faculty gets a timely warning that you need to watch for this individual, they're not supposed to be on campus, that causes a great deal of anxiety. So we make counseling available. Of course, we have an employee assistance program where all of our employees, part-time employees as well, can seek out emotional counseling. For our students, we had extra counselors on where. Our police department does a lot of trainings like situational awareness, because, it's not a safe world. You can go to church and things happen. You can go to a nightclub and things happen. You can be on a train and things happen. So our police are providing these workshops to our students and staff so they can become situationally aware, and it gives them the tools to live a life not in fear. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You can't live in fear. All we can do is give people the most education, knowledge, and tools to make themselves safe. So like myself, I'm sure they feel a little anxious, but they're leaning in and saying, no, I believe in the mission of our colleges. I believe that I'm here to help our students. So they're showing up, and I have the greatest admiration for all of them.
And that passion, does that kind of make the difference? Really, like the passion, does that connect you to the purpose?
I hope so. When I get, the best day that I have it in my job is when I get to go visit the colleges and talk with our students and staff, and just really have kind of a one-on-one, so I can see and feel their passion. They can see and feel my passion, and it really does make that connection of why we're doing things in everybody's role. I think a life without purpose, well, that's, why have that?
Yeah, it's sad at best.
Yes. Yes.
And you are very involved in the community. Did you grow up in Fresno?
No, actually, I grew up in Visalia.
Okay.
My parents were from the Porterville area, and when I was a young child, we lived in the Bay Area, and then we moved back to Visalia. So I'm a Redwood Ranger. I went to COS, go Giants, and then I went to Fresno State and just fell in love with Fresno, and I've been here several decades, so now I can say I'm like a transplant with deep roots.
You're Valley proud.
I'm Valley proud.
My mom is actually from Porterville, and it seems the more times I say Porterville, people are like, "Where is that?" And I'm like, "Do you know where your citrus comes from? That's
right.
Porterville."
That's right. Yeah.
Well, we're really, really blessed to have you here, Blazing Trails, and you in spite of, not maybe in spite isn't the right term, but there is a lot of adversity, and you do have a lot of things that, you are very involved in the community. You do have a very public role. And it is inspiring to watch you continue to show up for things, even though there are things that are threatening you personally, threatening your family, which is completely unconscionable. There's really no other word to describe it. And you are making a path for other women. And that is so appreciated just from women even outside the industry. Do you have other staff members, or do you have students that have expressed interest in a similar path? Or kind of this dual faceted question. Do you have a mentor that kind of kept you going? And are you mentoring with people that have the specific goals or passions that you connect with?
Yes, absolutely. My first mentor, and probably it's very similar to you. My first mentor and teacher was my mom, and she gave me such inspiration and tools, and to be able to really hang on to faith and hope, and be able to put those things into action. But over the years, I've had some great mentors, and I'm trying to give that back. So at State Center, we have a leadership academy that was been in existence, and we're looking at retooling that and kind of making it refresh it a bit, and looking at expanding it. We also have a number of leadership opportunities that we promote for not only our administrators, but also faculty and classified through a number of conferences. There's a lot of associations, but we're also wanting to do something local to be able to kind of grow our own. And I think we have amazingly talented staff and faculty and administrators, and many of them want to be able to try these different roles. So we're looking now at how might we be able to do that to kind of create our own internships, so people don't necessarily have to leave their role, but be able to try something out. And we've done a few pilots where, say, an administrative aide, for example, at Clovis, one of our executive administrative aides wanted to go into the teaching arena and had gone on to pursue education so they could teach. So we let them try teaching out for a little bit. And we'll see if she continues to like it. And if she does, we're going to support that. She was a great executive administrative assistant, but if teaching is her passion, we want to help foster that. So a lot of times we'll see people from what we call the classified professional ranks. Those are all the positions that are in support of the institution, in support of our students. There's different ways that they can, go throughout their career and continue to grow. We want to continue those. Same thing with our faculty. If they want to try different things, we want to support that. I think it's important. I mean, we're an educational institution, so we should be valuing education, right? And I'd like to think that we're putting a lot of those things in action. So, yeah.
I mean, overall, that really is a road less traveled for the way that, most colleges function at all. Any educational institution functions at all. And that's really amazing that you're seeing people take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And just to kind of touch back on, you said that you guys provided, emotional support or help, assistance with finding therapists or with therapy for your staff and students. That is so incredibly important. And it's something that we have, as a society, have not embraced in the way that I think that we should. So even just making that available that's a phenomenal program.
Yes, thank you. And it's difficult because there's not a lot of providers. So we're having to look at different modalities of delivery of services, whether that's like through telemedicine or those sort of things. But it's something we're looking at, how do we expand that and offer it to even more people. So I hope over these next, 12 to 16 months, we'll have more programs to be able to roll out. And of course, all of it is, there's an expense to it.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a value of people's, wellness that we really want to be able to support. And I'm happy to say, we have all of our negotiated contracts completed, so that's nice. So now we'll be able to focus on, what can we do together to make our workplace a better place where all of our employees can thrive, just as our students are thriving. And I think mental health and wellness, just physical wellness, whether it's yoga or, going out for a walk, is foundational to just a happy life.
I've found that recently in my own personal life, I'm kind of loathed working out until recently I found Pilates and I'm like, oh, it gets me out of my own brain.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Do you have a physical wellness practice that you really rely on or have found
Yeah.
that?
You know, when I was younger, I used to ride like road bikes quite a bit, and even dabbled a little bit as a triathlete. Not very well, but
That's
I
amazing.
enjoyed it. It was many years ago, and so for me, I don't get on my road bike anymore, but I do get on my townie, if you were. And there's nothing more invigorating for me just to go out on a bike ride. I really love that. It brings me a sense of joy and it reminds me of being a kid again. So I do that. I've also recently discovered the joys of pickleball.
Okay.
Oh my God. It's the
I've
best.
heard this.
Oh, and I don't get to play it often enough, but I absolutely love it. In fact, Fresno Social Sports, kind of a plug for them. They make it fun. And of course, I also belong to a racket club where I'm trying to learn to be a better pickleballer.
That's amazing.
But I'd really like to talk about Pilates. I've always wanted to try it, and I haven't tried it. So maybe one day we could go.
I would love that. I'm kind of feel the same way about pickleball.
Okay.
I have decided to get certified to teach Pilates,
wow.
so I'm working on that right now. And so, I mean, I would love for you to come take a class with me before you take a class from me, just so we can be sure that I'm doing everything right.
I would love that. I would love that. We could go play pickleball.
Yes, that would be super fun.
That would be super
I
fun.
would love that.
That'd be great.
And I understand that pickleball has become a very, very social, like community event.
It is.
That's amazing.
It really is. And again, you know, that the group Fresno Social Sports, really interesting organization run by two gentlemen whose names escape me, but they're great guys. They do kickball, they do pickleball, and they do another sport, which it might be dodgeball, but don't quote me on that. But they bring groups together. It's organized. It's fun. They have a bowling league. It's safe. It's like being recess for adults.
I love that.
And it's just great. And the pickleball is indoors too. So it's at one of the local churches where they have a
cool.
big gymnasium. And it's just organized recess for adults.
There's a lot of talk about or studies on joy and play for adults and how we don't really prioritize that. It's been historically, everything is kind of about the grind. We're defined by our profession, and obviously I'm changing mine at this point. And somebody said to me the other day, like, you are not defined by your job. And I was like, whoa, that didn't ever occur to me. So how do you manage that, like, professional persona and the personal persona and the community involvement? Because I'm sure even when you're doing personal stuff, people are like, hey, this professional thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. You know, it's interesting as an American, I think, phenomenon that you go to a party and they ask, not about your beliefs or, who you're married to. The first question is, what do you do? And so we're so tied to our jobs, and it's easy to get caught up into the role that you play. I think, again, I had a really humble upbringing with my parents, so they always reminded me of, we still got to take the trash out. Chancellor.
No.
Yeah. And my family does the same thing. So when I go home, I try to keep, my devices to a minimum. Although, I'll scroll through Instagram. By the way, I love your Instagram.
Oh, thank you.
You just try to compartmentalize things, for lack of a better word, and my therapist probably wouldn't like that, but it's how you keep your sanity. And I do think you have to make time to separate and to have friends that are not part of your work circle, to have activities that are not part of your work circle, because your work is only a season and it changes. I was the president at Kalinga, that changed. I was the president at Fresno City College, that changed. Right now I'm the chancellor, and I'm hoping to do this for a few years, but that will change too. And to what, I'm not sure, but I don't want to be tied into that so much where it'll be hard for me to make a transition into whatever the next phase might be.
That is really, really good advice, because I feel like a lot of us get very stuck in, this is my identity, this is it, don't look anywhere else, put the blinders on. And it is a fresh perspective, truly. And really, it's like you're paving your own road. And you're in control of your story. I think sometimes that gets lost on us. We forget that we can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as women too, oftentimes, we are in these roles of caregiver or, wife, sister, daughter, all of these roles that require us to play certain parts. And so sometimes work is also a big driver in that. So through all that, where do you find you and where do you keep you? And I'm often reminded of, when you go onto an airplane, they, in case of emergency, take care of yourself first. And that's because you do have to take care of yourself in order to take care of others, in order to do the work or to have the fun. So it's a good reminder for all of us. And I think as women, we need to kind of nudge each other and say, hey, I'm thinking about you, buddy check, making sure you're doing what you need to do, taking care of yourself physically, seriously about the buddy check. Getting mammograms done is important. Just your daily health of going outside is important. Yeah.
So kind of on that same token, what advice would you give to young Carole, knowing what you know now? Wow, that's a big one.
That is a great question. Yeah, it probably depends on like what part of life, but and I don't know if I shared this with you, but at one point in my life, my parents and I kind of had a break, and I didn't live with them for a while. Kind of got kicked out of the house. So that young Carole, luckily, I made some good decisions and didn't get on the wrong path, because I could have easily done that. I think I would tell that Carole, stay focused on school, stay focused on healing your relationship with your parents, and maybe have a little less fun, because I probably had too much fun then.
No such thing as too much fun.
Yeah, I don't know. In hindsight, my educational journey might have been shortened if I would have paid a little more attention. But I think it's important to tell young people, whether it's yourself, giving yourself the permission, or young people that are going through things, it's okay if you don't get it right the first time. I look at some courses and people, think, well, you must have been, great in school. I wasn't necessarily the best student. Not until much later in my academic career did I get better, but I never gave up. And that's the part, I think, even if you don't do well in a course, don't give up, take it again. Because you can't let one thing define you. Not one person, not one event, not one thing, not one class. Don't give up on yourself.
I think that is phenomenal advice.
Thank you.
What advice would you give to other women who are getting onto a road less traveled, who are considering a road less traveled?
Yeah. I think when you have those moments of reflection that you're wanting to do something different, that it's important to check in and maybe journal about what it is you want to do, where you want to go. Because as you know, the road less traveled may take you into a place that you didn't originally think you were going.
It's true.
But if you look at the big outcomes, is it the destination or is it the journey? Is it where you want to be, or is it a place, a condition, and a mindset? I didn't set out to be chancellor. It kind of came, and it seemed like the next logical step. I wanted to be a lawyer. This is not what I envisioned, but I wanted to help people. I wanted to make our community a little bit better, and I hope that's what I'm doing. So not to be so fixated on the path, maybe the journey.
Enjoying the journey.
Absolutely.
I mean, so often we hear, you get to the end and you look back and you wish you would have.
Yeah.
So just kind of like taking a moment to soak everything in.
Absolutely.
Have you relied a lot on your intuition to kind of get where you are?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, again, my mother and my grandmother both told me at a very early age, that little voice inside you, that's your guardian angel. That's the Holy Spirit. You need to listen to it. And especially if it's telling you of certain situations, take a moment and reflect on it. Be prayerful on it. Because it is those, coincidence is not necessarily coincidence. It's divine inspiration. It's divine intervention. And so I think it's important for women and men to listen to that little voice. Now, if it's nagging fear,
maybe call your therapist.
Call a friend. But if it's those things that are making you think, I want to try something new. I want to do something different. That's usually an indication that, you're meant to try something different. And maybe not to be a master at it, but maybe to enjoy the experience of it.
I was speaking to somebody yesterday who was an attorney for his entire career, and he decided that he wanted to try something new. So now he's going through school to become a sommelier.
I love
And
it.
I was like, that is so different, but I'm here for it. Like, want to be a student for life. I mean,
Yes.
not necessarily a starving student for life, but to continue learning and absorbing and changing, and your perspective on change and accepting that, and actually kind of absorbing where you're at without trying to define the path of where you're going is really refreshing.
Well, thank you. And I think, that's what I love about where I work. Community colleges really can help people as they're trying to determine maybe what's that next change, what's the next path for me. We're affordable, we're accessible, and there's so many options for people to be able to. I've always wanted to learn more about art history. I've always wanted to learn more about, X, culture. Well, then we have social studies and cultural studies, or I wanted to learn a foreign language. I think that keeps you young, it keeps you vibrant, it keeps you relevant, and there's no better way than just being around young people. I think it's great.
You make an excellent point with that. And I think sometimes we think, oh, when we're talking about a road, we're just going to take this road. And you're like, okay, well then I have to take this class and this class and this class, and then I am done with that, and then I'm on to this class and this class in this school. And the point that you make about going back and getting educated on something else or changing something a little bit, and it's so accessible. Now I have some other things to think about. So I appreciate that a lot.
Sure.
I got my little wheels working.
Good.
And I really encourage other people to do that too. Especially if you don't know where your road is going.
Especially. And most educators would probably cringe when they hear what I'm about to say. Sometimes it's not about the degree. Sometimes maybe it's just that one course to help you determine, maybe you want to start your own business, so you take a business class or a business finance class, or how to write a business plan to help you determine what it is you want. I mean, of course, I would like everybody to go on and get their degree, their AA, their bachelor, of course. And I know that many of our entrepreneurs here, and especially in the Valley, have taken a course or two or three or four, didn't finish their degree, but they're incredibly successful in the fact that they're happy with the businesses that they've started. And for me, what measure of success is there? I mean, it's not always a piece of paper.
Amen.
Yeah. and it's, so educators, yes, it is a piece of paper.
I mean, yes.
But it can be both, right? It can be both.
You should be happy with your piece of paper.
Absolutely.
That should be what you wanted to do.
Yeah. And it should lead to what it is you want to do. Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to our next unmiked lunch.
Yes. Pilates, too.
Yes.
Yes.
And some pickleball.
Yeah.
We're going to be active. I had a girlfriend tell me, my mom has a restaurant in Orange County, and I have a few friends down there, and we went to a Pilates class, and I was like, hey, you want to get coffee? And she said, well, let's go to Pilates. I feel like connections are better made when we're moving our bodies. And I had never really thought about it like that, and I think she maybe has a point.
I think she might have a point. I think maybe our next we'll have a walk or a Pilates or a pickleball.
Yes.
And then go have a coffee.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we're going to need to stay awake after
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.